let's get started here in a second. Talking about the calm. Well, we came up with the title Calm Before the Storm. So let's go ahead and get into that. As many of y'all might have guessed, the storm that we're referencing here is Hurricane Ian that struck Florida earlier this week. It was actually downgraded to a tropical storm. I believe it was earlier today, but then as of right before this live stream started, it got re-upgraded back to a Category 1 hurricane. So it's, as of this recording, as of this live stream, it's moved mostly through Florida, set to make landfall again in Georgia, South Carolina area tonight. So all of y'all, I know we have a lot of viewers in the southeastern United States. Like I said, y'all hang in there and take all the precautions that you feel are necessary. We're thinking about y'all. But as has become kind of the norm when it comes to natural disasters, we did see on social media quite a few people that have used the Hurricane Ian, the advent of Hurricane Ian, to kind of try to score some political points on social media by taking shots at Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who, as y'all all know, has been in the news recently for a variety of things. It's rumored that he may make a presidential run eventually, but he was one of the first governors to reopen his state after or during the COVID pandemic. He's taken a lot of extremely anti-left stances on some key issues that have kind of made him a firebrand. Not quite to the degree of President Trump, but he's starting to get mentioned in the same breath with Trump a lot more, and so that merits some attention. So some of the less charitable members of society decided to take advantage of the opportunity to use the hurricane as a reason to try to dunk on Governor Ron DeSantis. And it really, I mean, the attacks themselves are pretty immaterial. It's your typical stuff. Oh, this is karma for whatever policies of his that they didn't like, or some people have even gone so far as to say, hey, his being against the climate change agenda, maybe this will be a rebuttal to that, or wake people up to that. I know Don Lemon was trying really hard on CNN this week to get the NOAA director to try to advance some sort of climate change agenda with regard to Hurricane Ian. So a lot of elements at play, and honestly, this is not really something new. And what I kind of want to address, because it's not necessarily something that's just a problem on the left. It can be a problem on the right as well, and it's important that we safeguard against that. But using natural disasters as a way to score political points on social media or just in the general socio-political discourse, I find that extremely, extremely distasteful. Look, say what you will about climate change or Governor DeSantis's policies. Those have little to do with whether hurricanes occur. Actually, this has been a pretty quiet hurricane season by all accounts. We're sitting here into September, and this really is the first major storm to think of that comes to mind this season. So it's been a pretty tame hurricane season overall, but still, that didn't stop people from immediately trying to take the first one that hit the airwaves as a major storm and try to use that as a cudgel to bash conservatives or the right over the head with, or just Florida in general. I mean, these attacks never make logical sense. We're talking about the state of Florida. They deal with tropical storms, hurricanes, this type of weather phenomena literally every year. They vary in severity, of course, but you can go back as far as Hurricane Camille in the 90s. You can, or was it the 80s? My timeline's a little fuzzy. The point is, it's not a new thing for the citizens of Florida to deal with harsh weather this time of year. So to try to use that as some sort of a reason to say, hey, you shouldn't have voted for a Republican, or you shouldn't have voted the way I didn't like. I find that extremely distasteful. Now, I'm not going to say it's just the left that's done this. They're the ones that are doing it the most right now. We've seen this on the right too a little bit when it comes to things like, let's say, the California wildfires, something along those nature. It's not quite as prevalent because, again, that's a phenomenon they deal with all the time. But it's always something to be mindful of. As much as humans like to think we are in control of so many things in life, when it comes to natural disasters, there's really not a whole lot that you can do except be a decent human being and try to help your fellow man if you can. And if you can't, then wish them all the best. That's really not the time to sit there and go back and forth on climate change agenda, if you will. We saw a lot of the same behavior from the left when Texas dealt with the power grid failure. Was it just last year, 2021? Feels like, in some ways, it feels like an eternity ago, and then sometimes it feels like it was just yesterday since I lived through it. But we had some of the same people saying, "Hey, it's on the Republicans for this and that and the other thing, and this is why your state is bad, your policies are evil, and yada yada yada." Meanwhile, there's actual people suffering, going through it. People on both sides of the aisle, by the way, in these states that could care less about the political ramifications of whatever you want to have, whatever you want to talk about. That's really not the time to. There's not a good time to focus on it, but especially not during the event itself. It strikes me as people being incredibly shallow and incredibly crass, and kind of indicative of the times in which we live, where we've allowed socio-political dogma to infiltrate and seep into every single part of our lives, to the point where people have really put basic human decency second to, oh, hey, I can use this to advance my agenda and get a few likes on social media. That's really not what these things should ever be about. And we can lambast the left about this until the cows come home, but we really need to make sure that, when the shoe's on the other foot with the right wing, that we're not doing the exact same thing, because that would be hypocritical. Honestly, I've not seen it on the right as much as the left, but do know that it does happen. And if you see it, call it out as such, because there is a time and place for politics, and that time and place is almost never during natural disasters. Now, there are some exceptions to the rule depending on circumstances. Like, for example, when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, there was a lot of back and forth about were the levees properly maintained and things of that nature, and that does fall more squarely on government oversight, because those are things within your purview. Those are things within local governmental control that they can help with and help ameliorate some of these issues. Even with the Texas power grid, yes, it could have been winterized, I believe is the term, long before we had any issues. But you're also talking about that the same people who complained about that would probably have complained about a misallocation of funds if someone introduced an effort to say, let's winterize the entire Texas grid. And it just so happened we had the most freak storm in over 100 years, where every county in Texas was under a frozen advisory. That just doesn't happen. So if it's way outside of normal harsh weather harsh weather events, then that's a little bit different. But at the same time, basic human decency should rule the day, and we need to make sure that even in responding to attacks like this, just say, hey, that's not what this is about, and move on. I saw some people trying to criticize Governor DeSantis for advising people heed the advice of organizations that he had previously said were not to be heeded based on their COVID regulations. And of course, any rational person can see that's disingenuous. There's the difference between experimental vaccines that aren't really vaccines, they're more therapeutic, and then known weather phenomena. We know the steps that we need to take in this state to make the situation better on the ground. So a little bit disingenuous. People are still going to try to make an issue of it anyway. It's neither here nor there. And at the end of the day, if you run into somebody who is willing, eager, and able to make political arguments around, natural weather events outside of any human's purview, know that you're dealing with someone in bad faith. And one way to deal with them is to rebut them on their lack of facts, but most likely they're just looking for attention, and the best course of action is just to ignore them and let them die on the vine, and hopefully their kind will get the message. But anyway, I'd love to hear about how all of y'all have dealt with that sort of social media phenomenon, if you will, and some of the steps that y'all maybe have taken. I know y'all all have seen our Love Letters from the Left series on the Wright Brothers YouTube channel. That the way we react to those is a possible way to react to some of the types of comments that people have made around here, but everybody's got different ways of doing it. If somebody's come up with a more effective method, then feel free to share with us. Remember to like, share, subscribe, all the good things, all the good stuff, notification bells. Look for us on YouTube, on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram. I'm usually on Twitter these days, but wherever y'all see us, just holler at us, say hi. Remember, it takes all of us to promulgate any sort of a message, but especially one as important as identity politics being dead. That's what we are. That's our hopeful mantra for the Wright Brothers channel. And no matter what happens, come hell or in this case high water, we want to make sure that people are all pulling in the same direction, and that is using their brains. So anyway, again, everyone in the southeastern U.S. still dealing with Hurricane Ian. All the best to y'all. Please stay safe, and to everyone else, give them all your prayers and tangible assistance if you can. And like I said, we'll see y'all in the next one. Peace. Have a good one, tribe.